Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I love getting the chance for us to do not only something live so we can interact with everyone who shows up, but for anyone who is maybe watching this as a recording, you can always jump in, post in the comments, ask questions. We love to follow up and make sure that you're getting the most out of these experiences. We love doing webinars because it's a great time for me to teach ideas. It's a great way for me to help you maybe look at things a little bit differently. And what I really hope that you take away from today's session is ways that you can take the work you're already doing and make it stronger, make it better, make it more impactful. I don't want to overwhelm you today, even though I'm going to give you a lot of ideas. So there's definitely going to be an exercise of picking one idea to move forward with. But the true kind of thing that I want you to think about, especially as you're getting ready to kind of take in everything in this webinar, is the reality is you really should be refreshing what's stale. You should be looking at whatever your current marketing approach is and revitalizing it. Often I find for a lot of people is they think they have to throw out what they did last year. They need a completely different strategy because nothing's working, or they hear about what everyone else is doing and they're like, okay, trash that. Let me just start fresh. And while I want you to be inspired, while I want you to be a person that finds new ideas and new things that you can do, I want to help you with a kind of methodology and idea of starting to build on top of what you already have. Now, I'm going to jump between slides. I'm going to jump to between me on the screen, back and forth. If you have any questions as we're going, please use the comments. And like I said, even if you're watching this as a replay, use the comments because we'll jump in there and respond to you as well. All right. So let's talk about where do we want to start. When we start talking about kind of refreshing our marketing approach, one thing I want to do is I want to talk about some of the traps, some of the challenges when it comes to marketing. And what I find for a lot of us is we are struggling with our marketing because we're finding ourselves in one of these kind of three patterns. Now, the thing I want you to take away from this is I want you to realize which one you are. So I'm going to walk you through these three. But I also don't want you to have any shame behind it because the reality, even me, I can fall into these traps because new ideas pop up all the time. And depending on what's happening in the world and what's happening in my life, I can get stuck too. So I don't want you to use this as a way to be critical of yourself. I want you to realize where you are. So when we talk about solutions, you can adapt those solutions based to what kind of challenge you're having. So the three different kind of marketing traps that I find is I have my people are the stoppers. And what I mean by that is they have a big plan. They have a great idea about how they're going to do their marketing. And what happens is they have an emergency with one of their clients. There's something that comes up from a family standpoint, maybe a certain seasonality to your business, and things get busy. And what happens is you start your plan, you stop your plan. You start your plan, you stop your plan. You do a little bit, and then something comes up which puts a halt or moves your plan basically close to zero, brings it down. If you're in that bucket, we're going to talk about what you can do today moving forward so that you don't get caught in that cycle. The other kind of pattern you can find yourself in is the chaser. These are my people who have a plan, they have an idea, but they hear someone say that this marketing idea is gravy, or they say, oh my goodness, you should try this because it's going to make you go viral. And what happens is they're always tracing trends. And that chasing of trends, what can happen is they get exhausted because they almost feel like they're never quite getting grounded. You also sometimes keep looking at the work you've done and you kind of discard it or don't do the work because you're chasing that next thing. So if you're one of my chasers, we're going to talk a little bit today about how we can make that adjustment so that when you're revitalizing your plan, you don't fall into a trap and not be able to move forward. And then my last group of people are my repeaters. Now, these are people who kind of like have a plan, something that's worked. They're good. But what happens is when they don't build a new marketing plan each year, when they don't look at their plan and revitalize it or refresh it, they can get stuck in a rut. They can have things that mildly work or things that do work, but they don't necessarily go to that next level. They're not able to increase sales. They're not able to get more traction with new people. Or they're feeling like I've been doing the same stuff. And yes, it works, but I'm not achieving what that person over there has been able to achieve. And the reason that's happening is because you don't have a plan or something in place that kind of pushes you to that next level, that ensures that you find trends and incorporate it in a way that takes what you're doing well and make it even better. So we're going to talk about what you can do there. So before I go into solutions, before I go into what's next, I want you to just think about which one are you? And like I said, this is not a pointing fingers. This is not a, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're one of these three things. This is more of a self realization. This is a moment for you to reflect. Because I find for us to drive change, to really do amazing things, we often have to reflect on where we are so we can move forward. So if you're feeling bold and you want to share it with me in the comments, please post it or just put it on your notes. And actually, we will we'll talk about in a few minutes. Now, one thing about these different traps is they are different. They're different kind of sources, but the key is all of these things can keep you from moving forward. They can keep you in the same cycle of getting the same results. So what I want you to do is I want you to start to think about the idea that we're going to try to move you out of this cycle, but I also want to remind you that you may find yourself back here again. So if you do, come back to a webinar like this and make sure that you kind of find your way forward. All right. So let's talk about what do we do? If you find out you're a chaser, you find out you're a repeater, you find that you're a person that's a stopper, what I don't want you to do is I never want you to start over. This is probably the number one thing I find for a lot of small businesses is they often think they need a brand new plan. I want you to start thinking moving forward and really throughout this year that whatever you're doing, as you look at it, audit it, review it, or decide what's next, I want you to always think refresh first. I want you to think about that you don't have to start from zero to make your business better. You don't have to, reevaluate everything to make your business better. Instead, you can sit down and look at the experiences. You can look at the products and services that you offer, the channels you offer, and actually try to drive a refresh. So today, we're going to spend some time talking about like what's working, what may be draining your time. That's going to be a big part of this process. We're also going to talk about what you can do in social media to revitalize your social media, which is a nice way to add that refresh. We're going to talk about email marketing. I love talking about email marketing. It's one of the most powerful marketing channels out there. I really feel like almost everybody should be doing it. It's very few exceptions to the rule of people who shouldn't be using it as a channel. And we're going to talk about some things that you can do to add or refresh to get more. We're also going to talk about doing a multi-channel marketing approach. It's going to get a little dicey in there, but this is for my people who need something a little advanced. So I wanted to make sure we had something here for you. And then we're going to also talk about getting active in micro communities. This is a lot for us to cover today. Some of you might have just taken a big, deep breath, like, oh my goodness, Stephanie, that's a lot. I don't want you to implement all of these. I want to give you the tools to say, hey, let's pick one of these, implement it, and get some results. Okay. So you're going to do a little bit of learning with me, take some notes. And in the end, we're going to come back and say, which one of these are you going to put in place? Okay. Now, before I go into the strategies, before I go into building out a marketing plan, before I talk about all the things that you should be doing, I want to talk a little bit about a marketing plan. Because what I find for a lot of people is they don't realize that they don't really have a marketing plan in place. They just have a whole bunch of tasks. And what I mean by that is when I talk to a lot of people and I'm like, okay, what's your marketing plan? And they're like, oh, I'm going to get more active on YouTube, or I'm going to start posting to social media regularly, or, I want to do a lot of like word of mouth marketing. That's not a marketing plan. Those are just tasks, in some cases, ideas. You want a marketing plan that's very grounded, very specific. And there's really 5 things that you need in your marketing plan. And I'm going to show you in the next slide. And the idea is that your marketing plan should have such level of clarity around it that you understand what direction you're going. You know, what do you need to do to actually follow through and make sure this plan works? The biggest thing I see people miss is the measurement side of things, like how are you going to measure success? So when you think about where you are today, the first thing that you may find from this whole webinar is that you just need to build a marketing plan. Like that may be the biggest thing. Like you have a lot of tasks and ideas bouncing in your head. You're working on a ton of different things, but your revitalization, your approach to make things better may need to be, I need a marketing plan. It may be that simple. And when I say it's also a marketing plan, I also think that marketing plan needs to be documented. It needs to be on a piece of paper somewhere. Doesn't need to be printed? No, it can be digital. But I don't want it bouncing in your head because when you just have ideas bouncing in your head, what happens is we're relying on memory, when something should be done, what you need to do, what are all the projects, what are all the tasks, what needs to be done by next Tuesday. And what you tend to do is do your marketing in like burst and kind of say, okay, let me just get I'm going to take a whole bunch of pictures and post that on social media. Or you're like, okay, I'm going to write an email today and send it out today. And you become reactionary. I want you to really be in a place where you feel comfortable about what your plan is and you know what's next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 3 months from now. You have a plan. So when we talk about a marketing plan, what does it look like? You're going to have 5 components to it. If you want, take a screenshot of this slide because it's going to be a great tool that you can use as you build your plan. But what you want to do is sit down and say, who are you marketing to? Not everyone, not all vegans, not everyone who wants to eat healthy. That's too general. Who do you want to specifically market to? And then from there, what do you want them to do? Like, what's the action? And yes, there's marketing, that's brand marketing, that's, general awareness. And I know a lot of people are like, hey, I just want people to know I exist. That's important. But most people do a lot of like general brand marketing and they're like, why am I not getting results? And remember, you're at this webinar, you're watching this video because you're not getting the results you want. So, what I don't want you to do is keep defaulting to general brand marketing. I want you to really have a strong plan that says, I'm trying to target people who are transitioning to veganism for health purposes. Maybe they've struggled, maybe they had a recent diagnosis, and I'm going to help them on not only how to eat, I'm going to help them how to meal plan, I'm going to make it easier for them to cook, I'm going to make it easier for them to cook fresh vegetables, whatever that thing is you're trying to do. Let's document that. And what happens is I want you to have one plan for one group. And then guess what? Once you figure out that plan, start executing it, you can add another plan for the next group. And eventually you may have a marketing plan that has 3 different audiences, 4 different audiences. But where most of us make the mistake is we try to build a plan for 5 different audiences at once. And I don't want you to do that. Slow down. I want you to back up. I want you to build a plan for one group trying to take one action, which is sign up for a class, buy your book, purchase a course, pay for your community, whatever you're selling. Then we want to talk about where do you do it. So number 3 is where most people think their marketing plan is, where they're like, I'm going to be on social media, or I want to post 3 days a week, or I want to be on email. I need to start sending out newsletters. That's the where. But remember, that's only 1 of 5. From there, we're going to start to talk about when. How often, how much is done 3 days a week, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I want you to be very specific. And then I want you to say, how are we going to measure it? Because at the end of the day, if you're posting on social media and your goal is to get people to sign up for your classes, we have to say, well, how many people from social media went to your page to sign up for your classes? If you're trying to get people to sign up for something like a webinar, like I have, I sit down and we look at our metrics and say from all of our posts on different channels, how many people came to register for this webinar? And did LinkedIn generate more traffic? Did Facebook? Did YouTube? Did email? I mean, we look across all of our marketing channels. And when I have that complete picture, what happens is I now have not only an idea of what I'm going to do, I have an idea how I'm going to measure that success. And then on the back end, which is the next thing we're going to be talking about in this webinar, is you'll have the data to act on to say, hey, for some reason, and we'll use webinars as an example, I get a lot of people from LinkedIn over to my webinars. So when I want to refresh my marketing plan, revitalize my marketing plan, I may expand my efforts and do some testing specifically on LinkedIn because I'm seeing the results come in. Do you guys see how those pieces are linking together? Do you hopefully you can get a feeling for what I mean now? Because when you have all these components and when you build this plan, this isn't 20 pages. This can be a page and a half. This can be a short Google Doc. Just write who at the top, 4 sentences. What? 3 sentences. Where? 2 sentences. I don't want this to be crazy complicated. I just want you to get started. All right. So let me know if you have any questions about the marketing plan. But that's going to be a key for some of you. And that's going to be a great way for you to revitalize. Now, let's go back to what we were talking about before. Let's go back to the idea of being a stopper, of being a chaser, and being a repeater. So, how do you do that gut check? Now that I walked through the marketing plan, now that I explained what a marketing plan should look like and some of the key components of a marketing plan, I want you to take a minute and say, how or where am I in that process? Like, I want you to, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I want you to, instead of feeling like you're busy all the time, instead of you feeling like I got a million things going on and a million things that I'm trying to achieve, I want you to say, I'm going to put a plan in place so that my plan can hold me accountable, especially if you're one of my stoppers. I want you to say, I'm going to put a plan in place as a chaser so I have direction and guardrails. So, new shiny items don't distract me. And if you're a repeater, I want you to say, I'm going to put a plan in place so I can evolve. Now, remember, plan doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be extensive, it doesn't have to be everything you've ever wished or thought about doing. Start with one page and start to say, this is what I'm going to do, and answer those 5 questions. All right. So that's what you're going to do, whether it's a big plan or a small plan, and even with the things that we talk about today. Any questions so far? Just let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions about it. All right. So once we know we need a plan, once we know we need to enhance our plan, or you're going to use some of the strategies from today to build that plan. One thing I want you to do before you say what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do new, how I want to expand, I want you to do a quick audit. And let me just talk a little bit about an audit. I'm going to come on screen for a few minutes. When you think about auditing the work you're doing, I want you to sit down and think about the channels you're on. I want to think about how frequently you're already posting. I want you to think about going back to that plan. Do you have clarity on who you're marketing to? Do you have clarity on, which channel you're using for which marketing? Or are you posting the same thing everywhere? Just document that, because here's what we're trying to do. When you're trying to revitalize or refresh something, remember, I don't want you to start with a blank sheet of paper. I don't want you to start with nothing. I want you instead to build upon. And to be able to build upon the marketing you have, we have to look at the marketing that you have and see what information we can use to help us move forward. So, the best way to do that, or best way I see to do that, is you sit down and say, number one, what's working? And this is where you have to look at the numbers. So if you have Google Analytics, we got to pull up Google Analytics. If you're doing email marketing, then what I want you to do is I want you to look at your email marketing and look at your open rates. I want you to see how many new subscribers you're getting. Look at that data, because that data is going to help us know what's working. And even if it's small, I know for some of us, when you're getting started, or also, I think the problem with social media is you see other people who are getting millions of views or thousands of views or thousands of likes. You're like, well, I only had 10 people open. I only had X amount of people like. Remember, we're looking at your numbers. We're not necessarily comparing your numbers to other people. We're trying to say where and what is working for you. So what I want you to feel comfortable with is literally saying, you know, I did all these posts on all these different social media platforms, or maybe you did the same posts on every social media platform. Which platform sent the traffic to your site? And if one platform sent you 8 people, another platform sent you 0 people, one platform sent you one, you do have a clear winner. You have 8. So don't be shy. Don't think that your numbers have to be huge. We just have to start with where you are because everyone starts with 8. And to take 8 to 80 or to 800, we have to know where to focus. Okay. The other thing is, I want to make sure when you look at your marketing, I want you to look at what you're doing right now and saying how much of that is intentional versus out of habit. Meaning, I'm always on Facebook because I've always used Facebook. And the idea is, well, everybody should be, and everybody should probably be on Facebook. So I got to be on Facebook. I got to be on YouTube. I have to be on LinkedIn. I have to be all these places. The reality is, we need you where things are working. And at some point, you're going to need to scale back so that you can focus on the places that are working and then reintroduce those channels when they are. So therefore, you're going to have to do a little bit of soul searching and say, okay, where do I want to focus and where am I going to scale back? And then the last thing I want you to do when you're doing an audit and looking at your work is I want to make sure that the marketing you're doing has a straight line approach to the result. And what I mean by that, and I'm just going to kind of come up on screen again, is I want you to be able to say, when I do this, this is what I want to happen. So if you want people to sign up for a class, I want to know which of these videos that you're doing on social media, what strategy do you have place on social media? What channel do you have that strategy on? And of that work, which one of those are producing the results you want? And remember, your results can't just be subscribes and likes. Subscribes and likes are the first indicator for your business to grow. We have to get people at least on your website or on the sales pages so that they can sign up. We have to get people to your cooking class page. We have to get people to your course page. So we have to see which marketing tactics are direct. And when we look at those direct ones, we want to look at those metrics to see if there's anything that's working. That's the assessment I want you to do. All right. So once you've done that assessment, then I want you to put them into buckets. And I want you to say, all right, I got 4 things going on right now in my marketing. I'm posting, an email every 2 weeks. When I post those emails, sometimes I post about promotions, sometimes I post content, sometimes I'm being supportive. Great. Let's decide where is that? What's the data? What's working well? And based on the one that's working well, which one are you going to keep? Which one are you going to refresh? And then I said drop, but as I think about this slide, at this point, I probably should say scale back / drop because some things you do need to stop doing. But for as many people, it's hard to let go. So what I'd rather you do is think about scaling it back and putting it on pause so that we can focus on what's working and then move forward. All right. So taking your plan, looking at what you're currently doing, putting it in these buckets of keep, refresh, drop / scale back is your next step. All right. Now, once you've done that, you should have a basic plan on this is stuff I'm going to keep as is. These are some things that we're going to refresh, and these are things I'm going to scale back. Now, what I want you to do with that is now look at these recommendations I'm going to give you and say, am I going to add it? Am I going to add it to my refresh or not? Now, for some of you, you're going to say, yo, I just got to get a marketing plan in place. That's the biggest thing you told me today. I love it. I'm excited. I'm done. That's okay. That's fine. For some of you are like, hey, I got some stuff in place. I know what I want to keep. I know I want to refresh some of those things, but Stephanie, give me more ideas. That's what we're going to go into now. We're going to go into a kind of different phase of this webinar where now we're going to talk about what you can do and things that you can implement that are those refresh strategies. All right. So number one strategy we're going to talk about is a social media refresh or revitalization strategy. And what this is around changing the way you do social media. What we're finding as far as a trend in 2026 is for most people, social media is really about being authentic. In the past, authentic was kind of like one of the trendy things to do. Now in 2026, it's the standard. It's the way people want you to show up. Now, does it mean it's the only way you're going to post? Absolutely not. You're going to post in different ways. But our challenge right now is there's a little bit of a tug of war between AI and the fun things that AI can do, and how AI can really also turn all content into sounding the same, looking the same. And one thing you have to do to break through is you really have to make sure that there's some uniqueness to your content. And often that comes from bringing authenticity to the forefront. And this means showing behind the scenes what's going on in your business, showing the things that maybe you're struggling with, talking about the things that you put in place, and even giving people insight into the things you're building. When you're building new recipes, letting people know, hey, I'm trying to choose between these two recipes, or I'm trying to decide between these two flavor profiles, and showing people how you make those decisions before a recipe is kind of finalized and put on a website, if that's what you do from a cooking standpoint. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to use AI. We're just going to use AI in a different way, because I still want you to show up on camera speaking how you speak, not how AI speaks. I don't want AI to give you a whole script. I want AI to give you ideas and recommendations, but I want you to use your words. I want you to not use a teleprompter. I want you to just talk from the heart. Now, if you need some support, because it's just not your thing, there's nothing wrong with having some notes. But remember, we want this to be authentically you. So one thing I want you to do is look at what you're doing from a social media standpoint and see if there's posts where you can be more authentic in those posts. Whether it's posts that you're doing where you're not on camera and maybe now you should be on camera. Maybe it's posts where you only show the finished product and instead you're going to add some posts that actually show things that are happening beforehand. I want you to start to think about, how do I take, remember, what I'm already doing and make it a little bit stronger. Okay. Now, to make this work, for a lot of people, when I talk about this, they feel like, oh my goodness, Stephanie, you're asking me to do a lot. And what I'm asking you to do is not figure it all out at once. What I'm asking you to do is put together kind of a refresh formula. Now, I know the font is really small on this page. I probably should have made it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go full screen just so you can see it. So what your approach is. Now, remember, this is where you're starting to get into the plan. What am I doing to revitalize my social media to build my business so I can get better results? What you do, and this is kind of a strategy I love putting in place for my clients. I have them post 3 pieces of content in 1 week, right? When they create that content, now remember, that content is always going to be tied back to who we're talking to, how we're going to measure the results of it, frequency we have, because I'm going to do 3 pieces in a week. We're going to pick the channel, whatever platform we're going to put it on. I'm using social media as an example. So are you on Facebook, LinkedIn, blah, 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 blah. And what we're going to do is you're going to create 1 piece of content, post it all in the same week. And what I want you to do is you double down on winners. So if you post 3 pieces of content and 1 piece of content does well, the next week you post that content, but in similar ways, or same kind of topic. Maybe you move into a different type of format. So you move from video over to imagery. Maybe you actually use engagement posts where you ask questions. Don't worry, I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. Okay. But your strategy and your plan is, I'm going to post 3 pieces of content to figure out which one of these 3 people like. That's in week 1. Post it to 1 platform. I'm going to read my results. And then which of those 3 work? You're going to take that one that worked and create 3 new versions that are variations of it to see if I do it as a graphic, if I do it as a video, if I do it as engagement, which one of those win. Based on which one of those performs well, then you're going to incorporate that into your marketing plan. So it's a 2-week approach of 3 ideas, separate different ideas, then taking 1 idea and then expanding it into 3 different formats. This is going to allow you to know what's working, what works better than one type of topic versus another, and also see if there's any difference in putting the same type of content in different formats. You can repeat this 14-day project at any time in your business. You can do it once a month as a way to test your way to new strategies. You can do this 2 or 3 times a year so you can test out new approaches. But this is how you revitalize. What you do is come up with this and a 14-day approach, and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay. Now, for a lot of people, they're like, well, what do you mean by a full week of content, one idea? How does that work? So I'm going to show you an example here specifically on how you can do it. And then you can talk about how we can do it in all different types of context. All right. So say for me, this is a good example of what I would do. And I'll do an example for anyone who is, B2B versus B2C. One idea is I want to do a post where I want to show people the behind the scenes, how I prep for client meetings, what's my process, and so forth. I'm going to keep that authentic because I'm going to show how I do it, what research I do, what notes I put together, maybe even showing my screen where people can see how I keep my notes on the side. And I actually use like a Google Doc for every single one of my clients. And then I create little tabs on the side for every single meeting so I can go back and forth between previous conversations. And maybe I just want to show people how that works, right? So that's the concept. So if I want to show people that behind the scenes, what I can do is I can set that up as 3 separate posts. One post is me explaining it as a story, maybe me on video talking about, hey, this is what I do the night before. Client calls to be prepared, to make sure I'm ready. I can answer questions, and I have a refresh of what our previous conversations. And I just walk people through it. That's one post. Post number 2, maybe like come across more as tips. So I'm like recommending to other people, like, hey, these are 3 things I never skip before I prepare a meeting. Same idea. It's my behind the scenes look, but I'm presenting it in a slightly different format. Number 3, maybe I post it as a question. Maybe I ask people, how do you prep for important meetings with clients? And I can ask people, drop below your recommendations and what you think. This is 3 different posts showing the same concept of behind the scenes. But if I post all 3 of these in 1 week and I see one does better than the other, then I have an indication of how I can revitalize my social media. Now, if I post all 3 and they all do well, then I may have to post again next week and post it in a different way to see if the results are different. Now, it's okay if you have really good success. That's not a bad thing. But what we're looking for is the idea that if, hey, I posted 3 different posts, do my question posts work better than my story post? Do my tips post better than my story post? And by posting all 3 in 1 week, you should be able to get enough data and information, especially if you're linking it to a goal, which is having someone go to your website, having someone click, having someone comment, whatever action we want them to take. You'll now have enough information to be able to say, this is something that works, and this is something to add to my marketing, or this may be how I can make my marketing stronger. All right. What do you guys think about that idea? Just let me know in the comments what you think about that, because I found this is a really great strategy for a lot of my clients that they haven't thought about implementing as a way to get closer and closer to what works. Because the challenge with social media is the algorithms keep changing. The rules keep changing. What we think is trendy keeps changing. And when we just chase all the trends, we're constantly making a lot of changes at once and we don't know what works. So when we slow down and start to put, and I shouldn't say slow down, but when we look at our marketing as a planned approach and we say, all right, I want to test this type of content. I want to see which one works. I know what results I'm looking for. And then I implement it, look at the results, and then implement it again to retest it, and I get similar results. Now you have marketing that's not only based on data, it's based on your data, and it helps you identify what to do, as opposed to chasing a trend or chasing an idea or feeling like you don't know where to start. This gives you a place to drive execution. All right, perfect. Hey, Lisa, great to see you. All right, so that's social media. For some of you, social media box is the only box I'm going to ask you to check. I'm going to show other things because this is a webinar. I want you to have more ideas so you can pick and choose. But remember, I'm not asking you to do all of these ideas. I'm just going to ask you to pick one of them and run with them. So email marketing is my next strategy I want to talk about and plan that you can put in place. When it comes to email marketing, I find subject lines is a great way to revitalize anyone's email marketing, because the reality is when you send out an email, we got to get them to open the email. If they don't open the email, kind of like opening the front door, then they don't get to see all the goodness you have in your email. So I find one of the best places to start is that open, because if you get more people to literally see your email, then we can increase later on getting more people to click on your email, to sign up, to take those additional actions. All right. Now, subject lines I find is a great place because a lot of people struggle. A lot of people do what they've always done. This is where we go back to my chasers, to my repeaters, and it goes back to my stoppers. Some people are like, oh, I don't know what to put in social media into a subject line. So then it holds them up and keeps them from moving forward. Some of my people are just using subject lines or titles that they've used before. This is the March newsletter. This is the April newsletter. Those aren't strong enough to get people to open. Most people are going to ignore some of those emails because it's not speaking to them. And what I want you to do is, if you're a person that is chasing the idea of what's the best subject line, I'm going to show you how to do A/B testing so that you don't have to chase anymore. You can test. If you're a person that is my repeater and you've just been doing these subject lines the same way that you've been doing them before, then what I want you to do is I want you to A/B test your standard, your April newsletter as your subject line, and then test it against a more dynamic subject line. See if you get more opens. If you get more opens, then what we've done is we've identified that what you were doing before, while it might have been good, there might be a better way to do it. And for my stoppers, what I want you to do is I want you to do two things. I want you to use AI to help you with your subject line. Write one subject line, drop it into AI and say, hey, this is my subject line for my email. Give me 3 or 4 different options or ways I can make this more impactful, or an option that I can use to A/B test and put the original one that you picked and add the one that AI gave you a suggestion and test it against each other. That way you will know where you can get results. Okay. Now, for a lot of people, they're like, well, Stephanie, how do you really write better subject lines? Like, I understand March newsletter isn't the best. So what's a good example? I put the slide together to show you some examples. What you want to do is create curiosity. Sometimes you want to really drive home like a benefit. And then other times you want it to feel personal or urgency. These are 4 different ways that you can enhance your open emails. All right. Oh, great point. Someone just talked about content repurposing. Absolutely. Content repurposing is really, really important. And the strategy I was even talking about at social media standpoint is a great way to repurpose content because you're framing it in a different format to see if it works for you. And I'm also going to talk about something you can do from an email standpoint for the repurposing side too. So thanks so much for posting that comment. All right. So subject lines. Look at your subject lines. Do they create that curiosity? Do they have a benefit? And I put some examples here at the bottom. I know fonts are small. I'm trying to give you so much information in the slides, but a good example I have here is, if you're, trying to create that curiosity, having a subject line like you're making this cooking mistake every single week. That's like, well, which cooking mistake am I making every single week? Now, for some of you, you may be like, oh, I don't want it to be that negative. I want it to be the positive side. You can flip it the other way. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly these words. What we're trying to do is get the essence of it and create some curiosity. So someone says, what do you mean? And therefore they want to open up your email. All right. Same thing when it comes to urgency. I love urgency when you have an offer, telling people this is their last chance, telling people it's 48 hours until a deadline. When you have a coupon or you have some type of discount, putting that in the subject line is really important. Because when someone sees that, they say, oh, wait a minute, I need to act on this email now. Because think about it. So many of us get so many emails in a day, we're picking and choosing. Sometimes we're just missing emails just because it's just too much coming in. But if you're scanning those subject lines, which is what most of us do, you see something that says 48 hours left or last chance, then you're thinking that, oh, there's an opportunity I got to jump on right now. I should probably check out that email right away. So think about those things when you're trying to revitalize your email marketing plan. The other thing I like to do is go back to what we talked about in the beginning, auditing. Go back and look at your past subject lines. See if there's certain subject lines that had greater open rates. Now, sometimes it might have been the topic, so it's not a clear indicator when you look in the past. However, by looking at our data in the past, looking at which open rates have actually performed better, what I want you to do is I want you to see if you can replicate that. So, therefore, look at types of subject lines that you used, and you can do one of two things. You can even say to AI, hey, these have been my best performing subject lines. So when I'm writing my next group of emails, I want to include an A B test version that's similar to some of these best subject lines that I've already used in the past. Now, what AI is doing is giving you suggestions based on something that's worked for you. I never like to ask AI to write me a subject line just out the blue because AI doesn't know what I want. Instead, I always say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'd like to write. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And then I let AI give me suggestions based on my work, based on my text, based on my ideas. So that's one of the big differences when we talk about AI. And I know this whole webinar isn't about AI, so we won't have as much time to go through everything in detail, but I just want to mention that. All right. So if you find those that are working well, we can rewrite them, repurpose them, or use AI to help us. The other thing I like to do is when we do A B testing, I like to sometimes resend an email. So, say you had an amazing email that went out and it did really well. It did great from a sales standpoint, but only 20% of your email list opened it. One of my pro tips, which I mentioned here on the, I think it's going to be the left hand side of the slide, is sometimes I'll resend an email to that list. So if 20% of the people opened it, I still have almost 80% that didn't open the email, which means they didn't see it, plus or minus, technically, sometimes the software will say a person didn't open it, but they did because they got some blocking on their system. Let's not worry about that detail. So, because we're trying to do the 80-20 rule here. And what you can do is send an email out to that list, same email. Maybe you tweak some small things in the email, change the colors, change up some buttons, but send that out with two different emails, two different subject lines, and A B test it again. And what's happening now is by you going back and saying, hey, when I do an email, I send it out the first time with A B testing to increase my open rates. If I find this is an email that delivers good results, so therefore click through is working well, orders are coming from it, people are signing up or taking the action, you go back to that same email and send it again, but send it with a new A B test to the people who have not opened nor clicked that previous email. That's how you put that marketing plan in place. All of this stuff you can do from your email marketing tool, whether you're using Flowdesk, whether you're using MailerLite, MailChimp, Drip, any of your email marketing platforms. So when I talk about A/B testing, because I don't have time to show you everything, I have videos on this. We have things in our community, or if you have a follow-up question, remember, just post it in the comments and I'll send you in the right direction. Plus, you can always type in A/B testing into your email marketing software and they'll show you how to do it. All right. But A/B testing, I find, is a great way, and putting this resend strategy in place is another great strategy and way to revitalize your email. All right. We got two more strategies left. I know I've had you guys for a little while. We're going to try to get everything wrapped up by the top of the hour, but I just want to talk about two more strategies that you can put in place to help you. If you have any questions or anything I haven't addressed so far, please use the comments. I will make sure I go in there and address them. All right. So our final two strategies is what I call a multiple channel approach to launching something. And here's the thing. One of the biggest things that I find why people's marketing just isn't working is their email doesn't work together. Many of us have heard the saying that, sometimes people need to see something 7 times, 12 times, before they act on it. And our challenge there is we're like, well, I don't want to post all the time about the same thing or just repost it over and over and over. The question is, how do you help people who have to see things multiple times? Or let's be realistic. I get emails that sometimes I miss. Sometimes they just get pushed so far down in my inbox, I never get back to them. And because someone's going to miss 1 or 2 of your emails, if you're trying to do a marketing campaign to sell a course, to sell a product, to sell a program, and you send out 1 email, 2 emails, that's not probably enough. We need to be sending out probably at least 3 to 4 emails. We probably need to be posting on social media and posting in different ways, posting some reels, posting some long format videos in YouTube, and using multiple channels to make this work. The other thing you want to start to do is when you do a multiple channel approach, and this is another way I find can help revitalize people's marketing campaigns, is instead of thinking about just the promotion of what you're doing, think about the idea of what do you want to promote before you go live. And what I mean by that is if you're offering a 30% discount for 2 weeks, then what are you doing the week before you're going to offer that promotion? How are you teasing it? How are you educating people? How do you help people be aware that you can have this service? Then what do you promote during that time period that you're offering the 30%? And then what do you do post to support people and get people to the finish line? What I find for a lot of people is they forget that there really should be 3 phases to their marketing campaign, especially if you're trying to drive sales. Now, remember, I'm not asking you to put a multiple channel approach in place and email A/B testing and the stuff we talked about in social media. I want you to pick one of these. This just may be the one for you. That's why I wanted to give you this detail today. But the idea is that you may find that the way to revitalize your marketing program is instead of having pieces to your marketing, meaning you're doing a little bit here, you're doing some emails here, instead, pull your email together and actually build out a multiple channel launch where you say, to launch this product, to sell this service, to get people to buy, what am I going to do in each one of these channels before, during, and after? And how do they work together to actually get results? Now, for some of you, you may be like, you just gave me a migraine, Stephanie. That was too much. And that's okay. This may not be your strategy, but for some of you out there, this clicked for you. And for some of you, you're like, oh, I've been doing my marketing in a whole bunch of pieces instead of as one vision. And that's what I want you to take away from today as far as how to revitalize a marketing plan. When you're putting together a multi-channel launch, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, what do I do in week 1? What do I do in week 2? What do I do in week 3? Week 1 is the teaser, and that may be social media and email. Week 2, maybe social media, email, and in communities. Week 3, maybe social media and email. I just put social media and email here because I only have so much space on a slide. But in reality, I'd never put the word social media in there. I would be specific. What am I doing in the platform and the type of content? All right. So the idea is for each week of your campaign, you want to be clear on which channels are going to be activated for that week. What is the purpose of it? And what are you doing that's going to be pre, during, and post? All right. All right. One more strategy. All right. Final strategy is what we talk about is tapping into micro communities. This is a big, I guess I would say, this is something that's becoming bigger and bigger in 2026. We've seen this in previous years where people like communities. We've always seen people build things like Facebook groups. But what we're finding is more and more people are liking these targeted smaller communities, these micro communities where they can hang out with like-minded people. And one thing that you can do when you think about a way to revitalize your marketing approach is instead of adding one more channel, one more way of doing something, instead, what you can do is become active in micro communities that already exist. This is a great way for you to better understand your customer. It's a great way for you to be established as an expert because you're answering questions and you're interactive in those communities. Eventually, people will think about you from a solution standpoint. Now, remember, I'm not asking you to go into anyone else's community and promote. I don't want you spamming other people in their community and just dropping sales links to your products. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about going into a community and being an active member of that community, especially if you're this kind of person. Some people like this work, like just chatting and talking with people. And this, I find, is a great way for you to build trust. It helps you with amplifying word of mouth. It helps you become the go-to person. And also it helps you understand what your customers really want. So when you start to make other marketing channels better, or you start thinking about content you're creating in other marketing channels by hanging out in these communities, it can really help. And this may mean hanging out in a Reddit community. This may mean hanging out in a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group and being active. You can also build your own, which is option number 2. And we talk about this a lot where we tell people to create your own groups. I would do that secondary. I really feel like being active in other groups is a great way to help make your marketing sharper, because not only does it help you kind of be around the people you need to be around. And as a, you know, solopreneur and entrepreneur, sometimes we're in that lonely vibe where we just really don't, connect with enough people, that being in this space or being in a space that someone else may be curated is a great way for you to connect, a great way for people to see what you can do. And also, it can be great practice. Okay. But at any point in time, you can build your own. You can build your own Substack. You can build your own kind of community or group anywhere. You can even pilot a Facebook group. But I wouldn't recommend starting there. I would only do that after you've been active. But I find this strategy is so amazing because it can take your email marketing, your social media, like all of your marketing to a whole new level. Because the more you can spend time with your potential customers, the better you'll understand them and the better your marketing will be. All right. So we got 8 minutes left as we're wrapping up this webinar. And what I want to do is I want to just talk about, what do you want to do next? Where do we go from here? For a couple of reasons. Number one, when we talk about your refresh, I want your refresh to start today. I want it to be the day that you are actually going to make this happen. And I bring this up because for a lot of people, when they watch these webinars, they're kind of like, oh, this is cool. I learned something. This was interesting. But I don't want this to just be interesting. I want this to be something you take action on. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you, even now, just on a sheet of paper, if you want to do it in the comments, you can as well. I want you to think about, what do you want to commit to as far as a refresh? Now, first thing I'd love, and remember, I want you to just commit to one thing. I don't want you to pick all of these things. I want you to just pick one thing. Now, for some of you, that one thing may be, I just got to get my marketing plan documented. I didn't put that on the list here. I probably should have snuck that in, but let's just add that as a option. So, because I do think it's important. If you're finding you just have the ideas bouncing in your head and there's just too much in your head that you've been thinking about doing, planning, or being reactionary to, put that marketing plan in place. That's step number one. Okay. For most of you, because you've been probably doing some marketing, I want you to audit. And I want you to put that audit framework in place and say, what is working? What can I refresh? What can I keep? And what should I drop or scale back for a little bit? That's a huge kind of accomplishment if you can do that. I think a lot of times when we think about marketing, we just think we've got to do like more and more and more and more and more. And if we're not doing more and more and more, we're not going to get more and more results. But I do think by figuring out what needs to be refreshed, to know what's working so you can do more of what's working, and to know what to scale back, is a great way for you to refresh and make your marketing really impactful again. And also keep you from just feeling busy. Because I find that for some of us, the reason we're feeling drained, the reason why we don't like our marketing, the reason why we're frustrated is we're just tired. We're just doing too many things at once. And if you can use this audit framework to tighten up your marketing, to work on the things that are working, and to take some of the noise out of the marketing that you're doing by scaling back and focusing, I think you're going to have a huge personal win. The other thing is, I want you to think about what strategy you're going to put in place. Because maybe you're like, I looked at my audit. I don't have that much going on from a marketing standpoint. Yes, I got to put a plan in place, but I'm not ready for the big plan. What if I just want to hyper focus? That's fine as well. But remember, just one thing. I want you to decide, am I going to try to do the social media refresh? Am I going to work on my email subject lines? Am I going to work on a multi-channel launch because I have a new product or service coming out? Or I'm going to work on that community strategy. By focusing, I really feel like you're going to get results. You're going to turn your marketing from things that you just do to intentionally getting the results you want. And remember, for any strategy you put in place, we want results and an understanding of that direct line to results. So it doesn't matter if you pick email, social media. What we're looking at is, what are you trying to do with that strategy, and how does that strategy get you where you want to be? All right. So hopefully you feel like, yep, I got one thing to work on. Because remember, this webinar will be here. 2 months from now, come back and pick the next thing. This, you can come back later and pick another thing off the list. Remember, your marketing isn't about doing it all, it's about getting some results. So I just want you to hyper focus and start there. So that way you can get not only something out of the time that you gave to me today, which I so appreciate, but I want you to see your business excel. I want your business to expand. I want you to feel like all your hard work is going somewhere. And what I find is when we focus on just doing tactic, task, I'm going to do this, I'm just going to post, and we don't have that full plan with those 5 kind of components filled out. When we aren't looking at what we're currently doing and making it better, when we aren't identifying what we need to scale back, what we need to focus on, and what needs to refresh, we just feel like we're busy. We're trying to get it all done, and we start to get frustrated. So I find the best way to change that trajectory, the best way to stop being my stopper or a chaser or a repeater, is to start to look about how do you refresh what you're currently doing? How do you layer on one change, evaluate that change, and then get results? So with that, I'm going to wrap up today's webinar. Before I leave, any questions, anything I didn't address, anything that you came in today and you're like, oh, what about this or what about that? Let me know. I would love to know in the comments. If you watch this as a replay or later on, or I jump off and I miss your question, I'll jump into the comments and respond. But remember, this is all about taking what you're doing and making it better, making it stronger, doing more, and staying focused. All right. Yes. Oh, hey, Angela, it's so great to see you. It is so important that, you take action from this. Everyone who's listening to this, remember, a lot of great ideas are out there, but I want you to try stuff. I want you to implement. I want you to take an idea and follow it through so that you can have the results. And even if the results are not what you expected, at least we'll know, hey, let's put that on a stop or drop or scale back list and then move on to the things that are creating results. So with that, thank you so much for everyone for joining me. Thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait to hear what you decide to work on. Also, let me know about the results. If you tried anything or tested something and you got some surprises, email me, pop it in social media, send me a direct message. I love hearing how you guys are implementing the things that we teach in our webinars. And with that, thank you so much for seeing everyone, or excuse me, thank you so much. It was great seeing everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. And I can't wait to see how you revitalize your marketing plans in 2026. All right. Bye, everyone.